So I was just thinking about how much COVID affected goal setting. With that time, like more time in your house and like more time with family, I think a lot of people reevaluated goals. And with that career change, it really brought on some like career change goals, city change goals, a lot of different things like that. It's been a couple years now, and I've noticed like the fatigue setting in, or it's like a lot of people like had so much motivation initially, and then as you've gone back to normal, we've gotten back to just kind of busy how we are. People's goals have just kind of like or like YouTube channels. Like I've noticed there were a lot of people that started posting on YouTube right around the start of COVID, and it's just kind of like died off over time. I was just wanting to kind of like re-motivate people, because I was just reading this last week, and I thought of this analogy of mining. So it's like you start off and you have this faith. Like you start mining, everybody's mining, and you want to strike gold. You buy the supplies, you go out, you get ready, and you start, I don't even know how you mine, but you you start chipping away at it, and you start, trying to make progress. And you're motivated at first, everyone's there and it's really motivating, and then over time someone strikes gold, and you're like, oh wow, that's exciting. Okay, they're really close to me. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna strike gold. And then someone else strikes gold, and over time it stops being a little bit motivating, because it's just all these people are striking gold around you, but you're not. And it's like, well, what's happening? Maybe this is just not gonna happen. And so slowly the people start leaving the mine. There's some people who are giving up. There's people who struck gold and they left. And it's becoming kind of a lonely process. But you keep digging, and it's hard. And all of a sudden you're just kind of aware of how hard this is. And your muscles are tired, and you woke up early to do this, and you're all alone, and it's cold, and you're hungry, and you're just like not really wanting to do it anymore. And as time goes on, it's not really the cool thing to do anymore. It's like a lot of people went home. The people that were just in it for kind of the hype went home, and you start to get kind of bitter. Like, how come they found it? I've worked really hard. I've worked harder than any of these people, and they just got lucky. And like, what's the deal? How come I'm not finding anything? And then the thoughts start to creep into your mind about everything your family has said, and if your family's going to think you're legitimate, and the people from your hometown that you left, and you professed that you were going out to do this big thing, and what is your family going to think? And you know what? You proved them right that it wasn't going to work out, and it just starts to become a downward spiral as time goes on. All of a sudden, something changes, and you realize that you were called to do this for a bigger reason. And you remember when you set out to dig for gold, and it wasn't actually just because of the hype. For some people it was, but you remember that you actually felt like it was something that you were supposed to do, or it was part of your calling, or that God called you to do it, or, for whatever reason, you felt like it was a meaningful reason that you set out to do it, and you remember. And all of a sudden, that reason just comes flooding back, and you see, and God is standing there, or God comes behind you, and he puts his hand on your hand, and he points to where you need to dig. And you realize that maybe you got away from what you were supposed to, and that there's a bigger meaning behind it. And it's not all just hard work and digging repeatedly, but there is some luck involved in it, and that luck is kind of like the divine inspiration or God. And you realize maybe like you've been doing it without any of the divine inspiration, and why just hold on to all the hard work and the digging if it's not really the most important thing or the best thing. Really aiming at the right target would be the best thing. And then all of a sudden, after months of being in a dark, cold tunnel by yourself, the hidden light reveals itself, and you see the gold. It's kind of just a story about hope, I think. And if you set out on a goal a couple years ago, or recently, or at the new year, or whatever, or a couple years ago, and you feel like you've just kind of like lost it, like you used to be so motivated, and you were high achieving, and you had such promise years ago, that I think you haven't lost it. And that if you feel that you were, for an important reason, you were like divinely called to do something, to not give up on it. Because I think that's the main thing that you've got to do. I think the worst case scenario, if you keep digging and you don't find any gold, is just that you don't find any gold. But it feels like a meaningful life anyways, because for whatever reason you're doing it, because you have a strong reason to, or a strong calling to do it. And the best case scenario of doing it is that, you're living in your calling and you find it. And, the best case scenario of quitting is just feeling like a sellout. And I think that weight is so much heavier than the weight of just chipping away at your calling for your whole life. Even if you feel like you don't get there. I mean, the burden of just not trying is so much heavier. The best case scenario and the worst case scenario for going after it and not going after it. The weight is always so much worse for the worst case scenario of not going after it than the worst case scenario of going after it. And so, like, I would just sit down and just write those down, those 4 questions down. What would be the best case scenario if I did it? What's the worst case scenario if I did it? Best case scenario if I didn't do it? Worst case scenario if I didn't do it? And the stakes, they seem high, but when you think about it in the terms of a lifetime, the stakes are so much higher to not really be yourself and do things that are true to yourself. I just want to encourage people to stay motivated, because I think the world just needs more people that are fully alive. And so just go after what makes you fully alive, and in doing so, you're really helping the world become a better place. So yeah, that's my little idealistic, hopeful video of the day. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Bye.